This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Violent crimes and hate crimes have spiked in Winnipeg. Tonight, we're getting a closer look at the city's crime in 2023. The CBC's Alana Cole has been looking at the latest statistics from Winnipeg Police. Tonight, she's breaking down some of those numbers.
Winnipeg Police have released their annual stats report. It looks at things like how many officers they had in 2023, the number and kinds of calls they get, and trends they see. So here are some things to know. First, police say overall crime is down from 2022, but up if you look at the 5-year average. When it comes to violent crime, police say that's up about 12% from 2022 and up about 31% if you look at the 5-year average. So what are some of the factors driving crime in Winnipeg? Here's what Superintendent Cam McKidd had to say when he was asked.
Meth, drugs. Drugs drives a lot of crime in the city, the violent crime for sure. A lot of the retail theft that you see, some of it's related to raising funds to purchase drugs. So drugs is a huge one.
We wanted to dig into some of the numbers further. One is youth crime. The report shows last year saw a roughly 23% increase over 2022. If you look at the 5-year average, it's up to about 14%. And police said today, 1 in 5 people charged with a weapons crime is a youth. Here's Superintendent Dave Dalal.
These are the kind of conversations we need to look at a whole wraparound services of these youth to find out what's driving them into this lifestyle and what's going to get them out of this lifestyle.
Here's another point that stood out today. Police say hate-motivated crimes reached a recent historic high and that there were 46 reported last year, up from 28 in 2022.
They could be violent crimes if there's a hate-motivated assault. We've seen a lot of hate-motivated property crimes as well, distribution of hate propaganda, for example. So it can fall into either the property crime category or the violent category.
The report says there were 46 homicides in 2023. That's not a record. Now, the clearance rate, meaning charges were laid, happened in 37 cases. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
3 people have been arrested after a store in Osborne Village was robbed and vandalized Saturday night. Police say 4 suspects got into an argument with 2 security guards outside the Shoppers Drug Mart. They say the guards were verbally and physically assaulted. Officers say the group went back inside, stole roughly $800 worth of cosmetics, and demanded money from the clerk. When they didn't get any cash, police say they started breaking things. 2 18-year-olds and a 17-year-old were arrested. A 4th person ran away. Well, time is running out for voters in the provincial riding of Tuxedo to cast their by-election ballot. Polls are closing in less than 2 hours. For more on the Tuxedo by-election, we're joined live by the CBC's Ian Fraze outside a polling station at Varsity View Community Centre. Ian.
Behind me, Brittany, we've been seeing people coming and going. Voters have until 8 p.m. to cast their ballot. The big question for voters in Tuxedo and really political observers throughout this province is who will succeed Heather Stefanson as the next MLA for Tuxedo. Elections Manitoba says things have been running fairly smoothly. As of around an hour ago, around 2,900 votes have been cast. That's on top of the 3,400 people who voted in advance. For the most part, Tuxedo has been a PC stronghold. This riding has only ever had 2 MLAs, Gary Filman and Heather Stefanson. Both of them progressive conservatives, former party leaders, and former premiers. But the other parties are hoping that voters in Tuxedo have tired of the PCs.
So, Ian, there's a lot of talk that Tuxedo will be competitive this time around. Why is that?
Well, the NDP came within 276 votes of upsetting the Tories and Stefanson in last fall's election. And the NDP did it without putting in much of a campaigning effort. This time around, the governing NDP has put in a lot of effort. They've got volunteers knocking on doors nurse Carla Compton is their candidate. Hoping to keep Tuxedo Tory blue is Lawrence Pinsky. He's a family lawyer. The Liberal candidate is Jamie Fow, an advocate for foster parents and a PhD candidate. Meanwhile, the Greens have their leader, Janine Gibson. Again, polls will be closing at 8 p.m. We'll be following this race throughout the night. For updates, check our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Brittany.
All right, thanks, Ian. That's CBC's Ian Fraze live tonight. Community groups in Winnipeg say a planned cut to city grants could put programs at risk. The city is also putting new restrictions on how the money can be used. CBC's Cameron McLean reports the mayor says the changes are needed to control costs.
Samantha Harrison is busy prepping for a rush of kids getting out of school. She and other staff at the Magnus Eliasson Recreation Centre prepare up to 200 meals every day.
Food insecurity is a huge issue in the city and all across Canada. It's super important to provide programs for people who are facing that.
This meal program that the Spence Neighbourhood Association offers is funded through part of a $60,000 grant that it receives from the City of Winnipeg. That grant and dozens of others like it could be at risk if the city goes ahead with proposed changes to its community grant program. The city currently divides $3.4 million among a variety of groups through its annual community grant program. In the recently adopted 4-year budget, that amount drops to $1.3 million starting next year. Groups that had their grants approved through the annual budget will now have to apply to a new program. And the money must be tied to a specific project and cannot be used for core funding. Spence Neighbourhood Association Executive Director Michelle Wickerank told the Mayor's Inner Circle the money the city gives them funds programming that keeps youth occupied and out of trouble.
Many other groups in the city that are doing this kind of work, that are actively preventing crime, to ask us to continue doing that with half the money and no plan is criminal.
Art City Executive Director Eddie Ayub says the funding from the city provides stability for community organizations.
It's dangerous, frankly. It's to take away all these resources from people who need it the most.
Community Services Chair Evan Duncan says the city needs to control costs and the province should pick up the tab.
There's no question that these organizations are doing great work, but there needs to be other stakeholders who come in and take on some of that responsibility when it comes to operating. And operating means, boots on the ground and paying individuals.
The Executive Policy Committee approved the changes. It moves on to a final vote at Council next week. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba is seeing an increase in a rare and potentially fatal bacterial infection that's already killed one person this year. Manitoba Health says there have been 19 reported cases of invasive meningococcal disease in both adults and children since December. Typically, there are around 6 cases a year. All but one of the cases are the W strain, which causes meningitis that can lead to severe brain and spinal cord inflammation. In the early stages, symptoms are similar to other respiratory viral infections such as COVID-19 or the flu, but it can progress quickly.
So we really want to have some awareness so people know that if they are developing very severe symptoms to go and seek care. But also we have a vaccine for it, which is a preventative vaccine. So it's really important that people ensure that their immunizations are up to date.
Public health investigations are being done to determine the cause of the outbreak, but at this time there are no known links between the cases. Many people with the bacteria will not become sick, but will spread the disease to others. For those who do get sick, symptoms can develop within 2 to 10 days of exposure. An inquest is underway this week in the PA, looking into the death of a man in an RCMP holding cell. John Edaway-Capo died in October 2019 after RCMP detained the 54-year-old for public intoxication in the PA. The inquest began yesterday with security video being shown of him being carried into the holding cell and left on the floor with 2 other men. That video shows one man rolling his leg over Edaway-Capo's neck, potentially smothering him. He remains motionless for 5 hours until a guard finds him unresponsive. The judge presiding over the inquest questioned the lack of wellness checks. RCMP officers and guards are expected to testify later this week. The inquest continues until Friday. They slept through pouring rain, all for that shower of icing on a donut. Hundreds of Winnipeggers lined up for blocks to be among the first to have a local Krispy Kreme donut. The U.S. chain opened its first outlet here in Winnipeg on Sterling Lyon Parkway this morning.
Hi, I can help the next person in line. Krispy Kreme, it's probably one of the best donuts out there, right? I mean, you probably have it in Ontario or BC, and it's finally good that it's here. It's soft, it's creamy and everything, and it's just way better than other donut out there.
We came here around 5:30, and then we wanted to try the first Krispy Kreme here in Winnipeg. After trying out the donut that they gave us for the National Free Donut Day, and we tried the original glaze, and then we were like, we actually have to be here for the first day, and we know that it's going to be worth it.
Krispy Kreme speaks for itself. It's world renowned, so we wouldn't miss this opening. They have a flair, they have a wonderful taste, they have a wonderful variety. It's a win-win.
I'm blown away by the level of support from Winnipeg, the excitement. It's been crazy since yesterday afternoon, the build-up, and now the delivery of Krispy Kreme in Winnipeg is fantastic. There's the excitement of being a new business coming to Winnipeg. That's on its own very exciting, but the support and happiness of everybody who's here waiting and watching the line and getting their purchases is unlike anything I've ever experienced before.
CBC weather specialist Riley Leachuk. The lineup, my goodness.
I was just going to say, a little wet for them this morning.
I drove by this morning and I saw people in their ponchos out there that had been out there for a number of hours.
They were listening to the forecast.
Yes, they came prepared.
We had some visitors today.
Yes, we did.
About 20 students, grade 4 and 5 from Sister McNamara Elementary School.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming to visit us. We just wanted to say hello and thanks for joining us today.
There's some budding journalists in
I know, I'm scared. This is my seat for now. They can have it in a few years.
I want to talk about the tornadoes that rolled through Manitoba last Wednesday. Of course, I touched on that right at the end of the show yesterday, but I have more details that I want to show you. This is from the Northern Tornadoes Project. They were on the ground for a couple of days through the later part of last week, looking at some of the damage that occurred. So we'll start as that system moved through the Rivers area north of Brandon. 2 confirmed EF0 tornadoes, winds ranging between about 100 and 115 kilometers an hour in the Rivers area, damage to a couple of homes in the area, as well as a boat and some other outbuildings. The other ones I wanted to kind of draw your attention to was an EF1 that touched down around Spruce Woods Provincial Park. No notable damage there, but that same system tracked down through into the St. Alphonse region right outside of Swan Lake, and that's where we saw some damage to a home there, as well as to the Powwow Arbor in Swan Lake, and that, they say, had winds estimated at about 150 kilometers an hour. So just a look at some of the tornadoes that touched down, 5 in total as part of the system in Manitoba. There was also an additional touchdown that happened on the Saskatchewan side of the border. So 6 last Wednesday across both Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Another sort of active day across parts of our province into northwestern Ontario, which we'll get into. Seeing a little bit of scattered shower activity still kind of making its way through the Westman region into the Dauphin region. Otherwise, we've been kind of stuck in this dreary kind of gray day today. But if we look a little bit further to the east, a totally different story with some volatile and pretty active weather making its way across northwestern Ontario, approaching the Thunder Bay region. This did spark some tornado warnings earlier in the afternoon, kind of right around Atikokan, east of Fort Francis. And we do have some watches and warnings still in place. A rainfall warning east of Fort Francis, up to 75 millimeters of rain by the time we reach tomorrow morning. Severe thunderstorm watches, warnings, and a tornado watch as well north of Thunder Bay. So some pretty active weather to the east. Nothing like that in our neck of the woods. We're entering a much drier pattern, and we're also going to be turning up the heat a little bit as well as we head toward the weekend. So here's that system now as it pushes off into the morning hours. Overnight tonight, still a risk we could still see a few more showers across southern Manitoba. Very short-lived, though, because look what happens as we get into the morning tomorrow. Mainly sunny skies to start the day, and winds a lot calmer as we head into the day for your Wednesday as well. That continues. Not a lot to talk about. With the chance maybe of some instability in the Parkland region in the way of thunderstorms as we head into the later part of Wednesday and into Thursday. Wanted to kind of talk about thunderstorm risk, minor risk. We could see some thunderstorms generally across southern Manitoba tomorrow, and looking at rainfall, really not a lot. Trace to a couple of millimeters. Showers and tonight, Brittany, and we're looking at much sunnier conditions tomorrow with a high of 22 degrees.
We've been waiting for a full sunny day for what seems like forever now. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, as we get ready to wrap up a damp spring, many are noticing new neighbors around their yards, mosquitoes. We sent a CBC News crew out to South Osborne and Churchill Drive neighborhoods to see how people are coping with the pests and their itchy bites.
How have the mosquitoes been? On some of the warmer days, like yesterday, it wasn't so bad, but now since it's rained and it's cloudy, they're kind of all over us. You kind of get used to it. I was a summer camp kid. I'm kind of immune to them at this point, but it's a bit irritating when they're all up in your face and getting everywhere. So how bad are the bugs?
Oh, they're crazy. I feel like you can see how bad they are right now, but if we start talking and with each other and then just ignore them, then we just pretend that they're not here, then they're not.
I have my own homemade sort of mosquito repellent made with plantain and cold cream. And it's actually an indigenous herb that's been used for years. And my grandmother was the one that introduced me to it. If it gets real bad, I get one of those bug they call it a bug helmet, but it's a screen that goes down over your shoulders and over your head. And they're actually not very expensive. You can get them from the dollar store. A good long sleeve shirt and a thick one, which means in the summertime you roast. But you have to balance it. Do I roast or do I get eaten alive? And I'll take the roasting every time.
Yeah, moving into the anti-itch cream, more people coming in asking for repellent and then for things to treat their bites. When it's only a couple of bites, right, and it's only a few spot areas, we use the topical treatments. Afterbite is basically baking soda paste, so just sort of soothes the skin. If you have a lot of bites and they're really bothersome, sometimes the spot treatments, aren't a reasonable way of treating them. So what we would suggest then is a non-drowsy antihistamine that sort of will help with the itch all over.
But we've been lucky. The last 2 seasons, you didn't see a mosquito at all, but it was dry as dry can be. We are wet this year, and so we can consider that fortunate or not fortunate, depending.
Hot heat. Temperatures continue to rise in much of the U.S. and parts of Canada. How the heat dome is impacting people and schools and students, what they're seeing. More on that straight ahead. Millions of Canadians are sweltering under a heat dome this week. Warnings stretch across large parts of Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes. As Ithel Musa reports, hot, humid conditions pose health risks for both people and animals alike.
From Ontario to Atlantic Canada, millions of Canadians are under a heat warning as high heat and humidity reach what experts call dangerous levels.
I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest with you. Based on what happened in British Columbia last summer, it was extreme, like really extreme.
I like it right now. I have a feeling my feelings will change by August.
Montreal will feel like 40 degrees Celsius during the worst of it this week. This shelter is one place where people can cool down, get some water, and escape the extreme heat.
People can die from the heat, just like they can die from the cold.
It's all happening because of a heat dome, a high-pressure weather system that pushes hot air down near the Earth's surface and traps it, causing the temperature to rise.
Not only do you have the heat, but also you have the poor air quality from the fact the sun will cook the chemicals coming out of our tailpipes and smokestacks. It's just the whole day, morning, noon, and night. We can't escape it.
And neither can animals like these polar bears at the Toronto Zoo. There's a pool, ice machines, and plenty of shade to keep them cool. The extreme heat is something zookeepers are paying close attention to keep animals safe.
I think what's really interesting is how everybody is starting to get far more tuned into weather, into climate change, and what that means for our needs. Well, we have to think about that for our animals' needs.
When it comes to humans, experts say it's especially important for the vulnerable, like seniors, children, and those experiencing homelessness, to stay cool and avoid intense physical activity during these high temperatures. Ithel Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Meantime, those temperatures are causing problems in schools. Students across the country are sweltering in the oppressive heat. Most are in classrooms that don't have air conditioning and lack updated cooling and ventilation systems. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson spoke with students, parents, and administrators about how they're coping.
Grade 4 student Abigail Lafeve says that on hot days it's hard to concentrate in class.
And it's usually like 27, 28, 29, sometimes even 30.
Like many schools across Canada, Abigail's doesn't have air conditioning.
There's so many kids at our school that are leaving early because they are sick. They're pale, they're complaining that they're going to throw up.
With heat waves starting as early as May and lasting well into the fall, climate change impacts are felt by Canada's students. This is not the classroom heat you may remember as a child. It's more intense and could last for months.
Heat is underappreciated as a hazard, but it's responsible for more illnesses and deaths than all other natural weather hazards. For children in schools, it reduces their ability to learn.
We emailed provincial and territorial ministries of education. Some answered our questions about how they're tackling overheated classrooms. BC Ministry of Education said that it upgraded HVAC systems in 400 schools since 2020 to the tune of $300 million. Alberta said school boards have the autonomy, accountability, and responsibility to ensure their facilities are responsive to extreme weather conditions. A similar sentiment was expressed by education ministries in several other provinces. But this Ontario School Board trustee does not buy it.
The money that the government gives us isn't enough. And in this day and age, it's unacceptable.
At her initiative, a dozen schools in Toronto Catholic School Board are piloting a project, misting stations where kids can cool off.
It's nice when the mist hits you because it's like a big relief, you know?
It's a solution, but not exactly for the problem we have. It doesn't solve the heat in the classrooms.
As parents and educators fight to make schools a safe and comfortable place to learn in a changing climate. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Immigration is going to be a key issue in this year's presidential election in the United States. Today, President Joe Biden announced a sweeping new policy that will lift the threat of deportation for hundreds of thousands of people.
Today, I'm announcing a common sense fix to streamline the process for obtaining legal status for immigrants married excuse me, to American citizens who lived here for a long time.
The new policy applies to certain people who do not have legal status in the U.S. but have an American spouse. If they've been in the U.S. for at least 10 years, they'll be allowed to stay in the country while they work through the process. Some 500,000 spouses and 50,000 of their children could be affected by the policy. The announcement comes after the Biden administration recently enacted an aggressive crackdown on migrants along the southern border. Aerospace giant Boeing has been under intense scrutiny because of crashes and a string of other safety failures. Today, the company's CEO was grilled by American lawmakers while the families of victims, including some Canadians, watched. CBC's Katie Simpson reports.
The families who lost loved ones in the Boeing MAX 737 crashes gathered at the U.S. Capitol to witness the company's CEO be grilled by lawmakers over safety violations. Clarisse Moore drove 9 hours from Toronto to honor her daughter Danielle, who was killed in the Ethiopian air crash.
Did she cry for me? Did she know that will be his last breath? Did someone hold their hands? So Cajon, Boeing, CEO, management, did you hear my daughter cry?
In the room, they held photos of their loved ones, waiting for Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun to take his seat. He acknowledged their presence, unexpectedly standing up during his opening statement to offer his condolences.
I would like to apologize on behalf of all of our Boeing associates spread throughout the world, past and present, for your losses. They're gut-wrenching.
Calhoun dodged direct questions about what Boeing has done to improve safety and quality, and was grilled about the damning allegations made by whistleblowers the company cuts corners to maximize profit.
The American people, they're in danger. For your workers, they're in peril. For your whistleblowers, they literally fear for their lives, but you're getting compensated like never before. Don't you think maybe your priorities are misplaced here? I mean, don't you think maybe it's time to get back to focusing on making quality planes?
I don't recognize any of the Boeing you described.
Really?
And I want to assure...
You don't recognize the Boeing that has airplanes falling out of the sky?
U.S. lawmakers are preparing to possibly recommend Boeing be criminally charged for failing to improve safety despite promises to do so in the wake of the deadly 737 MAX crashes, while the Department of Justice has opened a separate investigation into the Air Alaska mid-flight blowout. These families are demanding and hoping there will be criminal charges, a step toward the accountability they've long demanded. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is in North Korea for a summit with leader Kim Jong-un. It's Putin's first visit to the reclusive state in 24 years. The Russian president has expressed thanks for North Korea's support in the war in Ukraine. Putin has also pledged to strengthen trade, security, and cultural ties between Moscow and Pyongyang. Western powers and NATO have expressed concerns that Russia could provide support for North Korea's missile and nuclear programs. Putin is expected to leave tomorrow. Still ahead, the greenest Olympic Games ever, but potentially the hottest, with measures including less air conditioning to cut down on energy use at the Paris Summer Games. Athletes and experts are raising concerns. That story and more when we return. Stay with us. The risks of extreme heat has become a serious concern ahead of the Summer Olympics. Experts say the Games in Paris could be among the hottest on record. CBC's Susan Ormiston takes a look at the concerns.
The Tokyo Olympics were the hottest ever, up to 34 degrees and 70% humidity. Paris could be as bad or worse.
I think there's a fatal risk, because as an athlete you are programmed to push your body to the absolute limits, and yeah, athletes aren't going to pull back. So if we are competing in these hotter conditions, yeah, it's definitely scary.
Last summer, blistering heat in France killed 5,000 people. Last month was the hottest on record globally, and Europe is the fastest warming continent. Athletes and scientists are ringing an alarm bell. In a new report, Rings of Fire 2, Sebastian Coe, 4-time Olympic medalist, says climate change should be viewed as an existential threat to sport. Heat plus humidity plus exertion can cause nausea, cramps, even heat stroke.
35 degrees. And yeah, I've felt as the temperature got up, it's got steadily harder and harder.
We really need to be asking ourselves, are we pushing them too far? Are we putting them into situations that are too dangerous?
The Paris Organizing Committee has vowed these games will be the greenest ever. So no air conditioning in the athletes' village, built instead with sunshades and in-floor cooling. But heat is such a worry, some teams are considering bringing their own portable AC.
In and out of the front.
I am really bad in the heat.
Canadian rower Jenny Casson says Olympic organizers should weigh climate effects significantly.
I don't think it's as simple anymore as choosing the country with the highest bid. You have to weigh in other factors, or else you're not going to have the games. Like, you're going to have athletes who are barely alive and unable to perform at their best.
The report recommends adjusting timing or venues and less interest in oil and gas sponsors. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Toronto.
Riley Lachuk is back, and we've had a real mixed bag here. It feels like there's a lot of rain, and then we get a little bit of sun, and then whoop, the rain's back.
Yeah, we're entering, Brittany, a bit of a drier pattern, and that is thanks in part to that heat dome that is settling in over parts of the United States and Canada, which will impact us indirectly, I'll say, as we head into the weekend. Looking at your dog walking forecast.
Our favorite part.
Our favorite part of the show. This one's, I guess, a little bit of a throwback if you look at the background of this one. Baker on top of the doghouse, probably because his paws are a bit cold.
He's relaxing there.
He's
you know
relaxing.
what? There's some places in the country right now that could probably use a little snow on their paws.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks, Frank, for sending this one in. Don't have to worry about cold paws tomorrow, per se. Talkback at cbc.ca is where you can send your photos into. 22 degrees by the time we hit the afternoon hours tomorrow. A sunny day tomorrow, and that's what I mean. We're kind of turning the page a little bit and entering what's a bit drier of a pattern as we head into the next few days. So looking at our temperature trend again as well, and you can really see how far north and how far east this heat dome, this really warm pocket of air is funneling into southern Ontario, Quebec, and into the Maritime provinces. Look what happens, though, as we get into the later part of this week, Thursday and into Friday. You start to see some of those yellows and some of those orange colors across the prairie provinces. And if you look at the temperature scale here, that's in that 25 to 30 degree range for southern Manitoba. Much warmer conditions into the southern part of Ontario and into the Maritimes. And that's going to be holding on as we get into the next few days here. Looking at your forecast for tomorrow, we're looking at temperatures at about 12 degrees in Norway House by noon. I'm saying a mix of sun and clouds throughout the day in northern Manitoba, but can't rule out a few scattered showers as we get through the afternoon hours. 17s for both Flin Flon and the Baja tomorrow. Maybe a few scattered showers in Thompson as well at 12 degrees tomorrow. In the south, bright sunshine to start the day. There's the remnants of some of that rain that is pushed off into far northern Ontario. By the time we hit lunchtime tomorrow, we're looking at temperatures at about 17, 18 degrees for the most part across southern Manitoba, some 16s back to the west, 14 in Wasagaming. And by the time we get to the afternoon, yeah, the risk we could see maybe a couple of scattered showers, maybe a rumble of thunder through the late afternoon through western parts of Manitoba. But Here in the Red River Valley, we're at 22 degrees under a sunny sky. Looking at the next few days, 26 as we start summer on Thursday, Brittany, and 25 degrees and mainly sunny skies as we head into Friday.
All right, thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Pop star and actor Justin Timberlake has been arrested on drunk driving charges in Long Island, New York. Police say he ran a stop sign and veered out of his lane in Sag Harbor in the Hamptons shortly after midnight. Timberlake had bloodshot eyes, alcohol on his breath, and performed poorly on a sobriety test, according to the officers. The charge comes amid his first world tour in years. The 43-year-old performer began his career as a Disney Mouseketeer, then rose to fame in the boy band NSYNC. He embarked on a hugely successful solo career in 2002. Over the years, he's won acclaim in a number of movies and has 10 Grammys and 4 Emmy Awards. Some residents in a suburb outside Ottawa have a frustrating problem. People keep mixing up their addresses with another nearby home. The houses are on different streets, but those streets intersect, and the homes are less than a block apart. Some of the owners are concerned it's a situation that could become more than inconvenient. CBC's Matthew Kupfer walks us through it.
This is the actual 614 Ribbon Street. But as Stephen Bacterial has learned over the last couple of years, it's not obvious to everybody. While I was able to find my way through Manotick's suburban jungle, some people haven't made it past the 614 at the corner of Ribbon Street and Bridgeport Avenue. There have been mixed up parcels, contractors, and lost visitors. Even a cleaning service that cleaned the wrong 614's washrooms.
They said they went to the corner house, they couldn't find our third bathroom upstairs, so signs of this is going to be a regular occurring problem.
The cleaners ended up at 614 Bridgeport instead of driving 8 houses up the street to 614 Ribbon. While that happened in early 2023, this contractor found himself in the same situation earlier this month.
You know, the GPS took me over there, but then I remember you mentioned something about not the corner.
It's inconvenient, but Bacterial and his neighbor at 618 Ribbon are both worried about an emergency call gone wrong.
There are concerns from myself and others that emergency services would not be able to find the correct housing. Someone needing of an ambulance, waiting for those paramedics to arrive, but they show up at the wrong house.
The city said they were going to change the Bridgeport addresses, but backtracked. They said they checked with emergency services and the addresses are correctly noted in their system, so no change.
The problem here isn't that GPS was ever inaccurate or accurate, it's that it's human error.
When I asked the city why these addresses are grouped so closely together, it said at the time corner lot addresses were assigned based on where the front door was facing. Since 2022, corner homes with their driveway and walkway on a side street would have their addresses on that street. In other words, if the same houses were assigned addresses today, they would be on Ribbon Street. Meanwhile, Bacterial is left documenting ongoing mix-ups.
The city doesn't care. There's going to be some kind of incident in the future, which we don't want to occur, but if that's what it's going to take for them to realize, hey, this is a problem, like that's what they're waiting for.
He says as the subdivision grows, the cost of addressing the problem will only go up. Matthew Kupfer, CBC News, Ottawa.
Hungry and Desperate, a local organization, says it's feeding more than 3 times the number of people compared to just a few years ago. As demand continues to increase, the call for help is ringing out loudly. More on how you can help and what's needed straight ahead. Agape Table is in desperate need of donations. The organization says it's experiencing unprecedented levels of people in need of food. Over just 5 days last week, they served more than 4,000 people meals. They say the shelves are bare. On top of that, today they were also gearing up for their twice-weekly food bank pickups for dozens of others. I spoke with volunteer coordinator Aaron Scarf earlier today.
So this is the food bank. We serve 145 people every Tuesday and Thursday, but the need is so great that we also offer 20 emergency walk-ins on each of those days. We've really noticed that just the amount of volume of people coming through our doors at Agape Table has just grown exponentially in the last, 3-4 months.
Well, it may look like there's a lot of food here. There's two separate programs that are going on. So I want to make that super clear that while there's food around here, that's the food bank. You guys are really in need of help to help feed people in the mornings as well.
Absolutely. So pre-pandemic, we were serving, 350, maybe on an odd day, like 400 meals a day, and that was all served inside. With COVID, we were forced to move our breakfast program to our front door, where we serve a bagged meal. And, in short order, our 350 meals turned into 600, 700, and then 800. And that would be really busy for us. But in the last 3-4 months, we've noticed that not only have we surpassed 900 meals a day, but we're actually getting a lot closer to 1,000 meals a day. Just last week, we served 4,300 meals.
How do you keep up with that? Can you keep up with that?
You know what? It's been a struggle these last 4 months. It's 4,300 of granola bars, 4,300 sandwiches, 4,300 soup to-go containers. Bags. It's an unbelievable amount of effort and volunteer work that goes on here every day to make this possible.
What do you guys need? There's a desperate call that Agape put out this morning.
Yeah. So we desperately need items like saran wrap. We need Ziploc bags, number 8 paper bags to put the lunches in, plastic spoons, or wooden spoons, whatever. But also we really need filling for sandwiches. We need deli meat. We really require, we want to make sure we serve a balanced meal. And for that to happen, we need to have yogurt in there. We need to have, some sort of other produce in there. Along with that, we serve a sandwich and a soup to go. So,
what are you hearing from people that are coming here? I mean, if you were doing 300 before and you're doing close to 1,000, these are people that weren't using your services before.
That 100%. So there's been a few things that we've noticed. Obviously, the cost of living has really gone up here, nationwide, and we've always been available to anybody who needs our service. Be it if you're working, if you're unemployed, whatever your circumstances, we're going to make sure that we have food available for you. And that could be, we have Ukrainian refugees that use our services. We have people from the Middle East that use, it's a wide variety down in Winnipeg in this core area, and it's a cross section of every walk of life here.
What does that bag lunch mean to some people that are coming here?
So Agape Table, we really want to make sure that this is the bright start to the day that our guests have, right? Be it wherever they go, however they approach their day. We want to make sure that food and food security is not a concern for them. If that means, if we have it, we're going to give it. And we want to make sure that people don't have to worry about food in Winnipeg.
In some circumstances, this very likely could be the only meal somebody gets in a day.
Absolutely. We, in addition to the bagged meal that we really need items for, we have some bulk items that we're able to give out in addition to the bagged meal. So we want to make sure, so we really focus on, getting as much as we can to our guests.
Well, it was a bit of a dreary and gray day today. Riley Lachuk is back after the break with a last check on our forecast. Stay with us.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned. And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Here's one last look at radar imagery, and you can see still some thunderstorm activity south of the U.S. border, just outside of Fort Francis, which is not in the rainfall warning, but that rainfall warning extending east up to 75 millimeters of rain coming by the time we reach the morning tomorrow. Starting at 13 degrees tomorrow, still a few clouds hanging around. Otherwise, we're looking at a mainly sunny day today or tomorrow. Not quite at seasonal, but there's that risk we could see a bit of a thunderstorm rolling through late afternoon. The greatest risk further west. We do get above seasonal once again by the time we reach Thursday at 26 degrees, 25 for Friday, a mainly sunny sky. Saturday and Sunday also looking pretty sunny as well, although we could see late in the day Saturday a shower, and then we have a risk of thunderstorms again on Monday. Some elementary students at a school in Quebec are building several gardens, Brittany, in their schoolyard.
It's so their community can have better access to food and more spaces to stay cool this summer. Here's tonight's Daily Lift.
We took away 115 square meters of pavement to be able to plant more trees and shrubs and biodiversity to provide more shade and have some cooler spaces for the kids during the school year.
It feels like kind of weird, like someone's like dry and someone's like wet. At least if I have someone to help me, it feels very nice.
I found a giant rock.
They're getting their hands dirty and they're making this place their own. This is a depaved area that's gonna be flower bed for some, but the trees are also going to grow and provide some shade and cool the building down. And then over here, this is an area that will be for children to play and beautify the space a little bit. And finally, in that corner over there, it'll be the edible forest with the garden and the fruit trees.
Is it crooked? We need to know which way do we need to.
I plant every summer with my grandma. It's like that, but with my BFF.
I feel like it gives me more courage.
If like I never did it and I felt like I can't do it, she's always like there by my side and she helps me. She always says that she has my back.
So the VEEF project aims to offer some free or very low-cost greening projects in the areas that need it the most and in a participative manner. A lot of students are from families that have low socioeconomic status. People are most affected by, for example, heat waves. And we can see that they also have less access to green spaces.
I like to help the environment, so I feel pretty good. I think it's really fun to plant, and I think you should do it too.
I liked how she said it. It's just like planting with my grandma, but with my BFF instead.
There's a lot of green thumbs
Yes,
in that crowd there,
yes.
and I will tell you, maybe they can give me some tips because, Riley, I killed my succulents. And I don't even know how that's possible. So if you have tips for me, please send them my way.
Our producer, Chuck, in the control room, I think he might be able to help you with that.
Okay, I'll have to call him. We'll see if I can keep something else alive. That's it for us tonight. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.